Hi, I'm Speedball Mike Bailey.
This is Rachel Ellering, the queen of strong smile.
I'm Eric Bischoff.
Live events, all right? When the WWE comes on the holiday tour, when they come to Ireland.
Or Davy Boy without hair braids.
As a fan with braids, as a dog without braids.
And you
Are watching
are watching Wrestle Slam.
Wrestle Slam.
And you're watching Wrestle Slam.
Hey, Mike.
Hello.
How are you, sir? How's things?
Very good. How about you?
Yeah, good. We're missing you here in Ireland. Obviously, we haven't seen you at OTT in quite some time, but we're missing you.
Right. Thank you. I'm missing Ireland as well. Nice to meet you guys.
Definitely. So we're going to have a good chat, good interview. We're all massive fans here in Europe. I'm joined by Tim, Phil, and, of course, myself. We've got some great questions. So, first of all, Mike, how's things been? It's been a crazy couple of months. The pandemic has halted so much around the world, but how have you been?
I've been great. I've been doing all right. You know, pandemic's been rough for everyone. Luckily, I could complain on and on about how I've not been able to wrestle or travel or go to the gym, and it's been terrible. But my family and I are healthy, and that's what matters most.
Most definitely. No, we're going to have to take it back to the early days, Mike. We've been blessed to see you wrestle in front of thousands of people all over the world. How did wrestling come about for you first day? Were you always like, I suppose, a fan growing up, or did it just happen one day and you said, right, I want to wrestle?
I can barely remember, not only can I not remember not being a fan of pro wrestling, but I can't remember not wanting to be a pro wrestler on top of that. It was one of those things where first time I ever saw it on TV, I decided, this is what I'm doing. Let's go. And it's stuck with me ever since. Plenty of moments of doubt on whether that would actually work out or not. But I never fully gave up on the idea since I was 7 years old.
And it's been non-stop. Obviously, I think you made that debut back in 2006. We've been great to see you wrestle, some of the greats and, some of the best indie wrestlers on the planet right now. Tell us about that first match. Can you remember the first time you got in that ring and had that first match?
So I can. So I count my official debut as January 2006, right? Because that's when I started taking bookings, whichever bookings I could, in front of, 20 people, no more. But my first match was actually a few months even before that, when I'm not even sure if I was 15 years yet. I might have been 14, but it was essentially a squash match it's barely you see squash match, you think an opportunity, barely, but no, this was me getting squashed in front of 15 people by people who had also been wrestling for under 6 months. But there was a tag team called the Hardcore Ninjas, who were basically ninjas. And this other tag team who was feuding with them was doing the gimmick where they said, we're going to face the Hardcore Ninjas for our titles tonight. But then really it's me and my brother with crappy ninja outfits and just getting our asses kicked for 5 minutes. And that was my first match ever. Quite underwhelming. However, I still loved it, even though it wasn't, a glorious display of my wrestling talent. It was just me getting beaten up, but I did get to do one backflip, so that was a win. Yes. But yeah, it was a start at least.
Always a win. And we know how big wrestling is in Canada. I was lucky enough to live out in Vancouver for a while back in 2011. But
oh wow.
I just remember, obviously, all the stories about Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Lance Storm. Obviously, you kind of looked up to some of these guys as well, because Canadian, people say, Canadians are the best at wrestling. They always say that. Did you look up at the likes of Bret Hart and Lance Storm and all these great guys and maybe take inspiration from them?
So the thing is, I absolutely did not.
Respect.
So first of all, I don't want to go into politics, but I definitely identify a lot more as Québécois than as Canadian.
Yeah.
Being French.
I understand that.
Yeah. So being Irish, you would know all about that, right? Kind of a similar thing. But when I really fell in love with wrestling was when I saw it. I started watching the stuff that was on TV since I was very young. and I was like, this is cool, I want to do it. But then when I first finally came across stuff that, like, for example, happened in Japan through tapes or what I found on the internet, was like when I really, really fell in love with it and was like, wow, this is moreover than just like, this is cool. Like, this is really, like, this speaks to me a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, of course, I can recognize all the great Canadian talents and the Chris Jericho's and the Kenny Omega, I think is the best in the world right now, possibly. But he and he is Canadian, but he was not really part of my formative years as a wrestling fan or as a wrestler. But I would say that I have a lot more influences when talking about early on that come from independent American wrestling or Japanese wrestling, and a lot less from the old Canadian names. But like, it's funny because Quebec has a rich history of pro wrestling with the Jacques Rougeau and Mad Dog Vachon and Great Antonio and Dino Bravo and Rick Martel and all those guys. But I never like strongly associated with them.
Yeah.
Or even like related to them very much until much later in life when I went back and watched it and then really appreciated it.
Yeah. No, interesting. I like the honest take as well. Tim, I know you've got a couple of questions for Mike, and as I said, Mike, we've been lucky enough to see you. We've seen you in our hometown in Cork. You had a great match against Pac.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But Tim, fire away, my man.
Where are we, Mike? We know now that you haven't wrestled in the United States for a long, long time, and as far as we can tell, is your band actually up from traveling to the States to wrestle?
Sort of, but it isn't that simple.
Yeah, I know it's a lot stranger. If you were to go back to the States, do you think we'll see you pop up maybe in NXT, or maybe would you show up in AEW? Is there something on the horizon that you're looking to do?
I have absolutely no idea.
I love it. So tight-lipped. We're seeing so many rumors, Mike. There's so much happening. But look, it's fair to say you're a man in demand. But I love it. Straight answer.
And also, know we've seen you done a lot of work in Evolve. Did you have any fond memories when you wrestled for Evolve?
I mean, yeah, of course, plenty. I have great memories of all the places I wrestled for in the United States. Got to wrestle some of my favorite people at Evolve. Biff Busick, who's now Oni Lorcan. He and I had one of our many great matches at Evolve. Chris Hero as well, who is one of my favorite wrestlers in the world right now. Few people know this, but Evolve is actually where I met the person that then allowed me to wrestle for DDT and made that connection there. So yeah, met a lot of really great people at Evolve. Really appreciate my time there.
Very good, very good. And is there anyone right now that you want to wrestle big time, that there's somebody that you're looking to wrestle that you haven't wrestled yet?
I think about that a lot, and it feels like there are way too many to name. However, off the top of my head right now is Lee Moriarty, who's a great guy in the US, who's been really crushing it. Trish Adora, who is another wrestler in the United States that has been doing some fantastic things. Local Irish boys, MTH, I had a tag match with Mao and I in the Moonlight Express versus Nathan Martin, but I've never gotten to work with LJ Cleary, and he's going to go on to great things, so I'd love to work with him at some point. And again, how much longer do you want me to go on with this?
And just finally, one more question there for you is, you've wrestled in so many countries and for so many different promotions on the indie scene, whether it was in America, Japan, Europe. Is there anywhere was your favorite place to wrestle?
So that's a great question. For me, it was Japan. I really appreciate the audiences in Japan. I find that in terms of like the audience spectrum on both ends are Japan and Mexico, right? Where the culture of wrestling is very different. In Japan, they pay attention and they're quiet, and that allows you to tell really complex stories and put details into your matches that the audience is really going to take the time to try and understand and see. Where in Mexico is a complete opposite. Everyone's drunk and they don't care unless you're diving off the top rope for the most part, which is fun, but I prefer the chance to tell like deeper stories in Japan, the way they do it.
Awesome. Great. Awesome. Phil, I know you've got a couple of questions, my man, and Phil's been blessed to see you wrestle at OTT Wrestling and all over YouTube as well.
Yeah, you were actually involved in probably my favorite live match versus Keith Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's on YouTube. It gets brought up a lot.
I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I mean, I thought that match was great. I think Keith Lee is, of course, obviously world-class talent, and I thought the way the match came together was really nice, and the way it played out was even better. I don't think it was like one of my best matches, even, mostly because it was so long ago. Like, it's a couple years ago, right? It's late 2017 or early 20, right? So of course I've improved a lot since, as is my general goal for my career. But it gets brought up a lot. It's it's on YouTube, and it's probably one of my most viewed matches on YouTube. And I've watched it back. I've watched it back on my Twitch channel. I'm always happy to see it. I love the match, but it's kind of bittersweet that I know how much better I am now, but it gets brought up so much. Like, it was definitely at the time in contention for one of my best received matches at the time, right?
Because when we were in the crowd, the spot we were in, it almost looked like you were, when he does his pounce, it almost looked like you went out of the ring.
Yeah.
So where we were sitting, it was just that kind of view. But just kind of speaking with OTT, what's your kind of earliest memory?
First match was been against Jordan Devlin at the Tivoli. But yeah, OTT.
Since it's gone, isn't it? The Tivoli's been destroyed.
Yeah, which is a shame because it was an absolutely great venue. But OTT is really one of those places that continuously gets brought up in independent wrestling all around the world as being really one of the best places. And it's really hard to understand why unless you go.
Yeah.
But it is definitely an example to follow for every other promotion in terms of just putting on great shows consistently. Like fun shows, the way independent wrestling should be, which is something I think they do amazingly well. Like, I think people get wrapped up in pro wrestling and see other things that they want to do, even though it doesn't necessarily apply to them. But OTT has really embraced being an independent promotion and doing indie wrestling the way it's meant to be done.
Yeah. No, it's just we were blessed to be able to kind of follow your career for a few years when you were over here.
Yeah. And it's fair to say, like your European fan base is mad, Mike. Like, your matches, you're there's no such thing as a bad match in wrestling, in my opinion, but every match you're in, we're on the edge of our seat. Like, that backflip in Cork with Pac, it was, like, that's gone viral. There was people talking about that in local radio stations as in, it was the craziest thing people ever seen. You're always in a great match. Where does that courage come from? Because, look, there's wrestlers that are kind of, we see wrestlers that are kind of one-dimensional, but, like, you have so many dimensions when it comes to wrestling. Like, you don't know what to expect. Every match is so much different to the other, Well,
so I think there's that just destroys the argument that you hear sometimes of like, oh, wrestlers do too much nowadays. And like, oh, if they just took their time and sold more and did less stunts, then wrestling things would mean more. No, they wouldn't. Wrestling would just be a lot more boring. Yeah. The reason that you need to, as a wrestler, in order to like stand out and be as successful as you can be, you need to find those moments, and those moments only happen because the envelope was pushed. And like, I feel not that I need it, not that it was necessary and would have been a great match without it, but it then makes sense to go and really think outside the box to how you can be different and how you can stand out, knowing that all wrestling is great. Like, I'm a good wrestler, but that isn't why I've achieved notoriety. Like, it's because I've always been willing to like do more and push the envelope and do crazier things in order to make my matches stand out when I feel that they should. And that gives you things like that moonsault off the balcony, which has been talked about a lot. And another like important part of that is being safe and understanding what you can do safely and I feel like whatever success I've had is due to the fact that I've been able to mix those two things together, the safety and the craziness. Because if without, like, you don't last very long without both, and you without one, and you don't get very far without the other, right? So Pac is absolutely fantastic. He's an amazing wrestler, one of the world's best, like, far and out. And, you know, if that means that I have to jump off a balcony, then so be it.
Lucky that we got to see that. Now, you mentioned earlier on about, like, you know, perhaps, you know, the Keeley match, and obviously, you know, so much more has happened since that match. Like, Mike, is it fair to say, look, it's probably hard to pinpoint one match, but would you have a match that might stand out to you as perhaps that best match? Like, you know what I mean? There's so many defining moments in wrestling, and we've seen so many highlight reels. On YouTube today, there was Mike Bailey's 50 best moves on YouTube. Like, there's so many moves and stuff, but anything that stands out to you is right. Yeah, look, I think that's why I wrestle. This is why I want to do it, and this match really stood out to me.
So my match with Bandito from WXW 16 Carat 2020. Mostly because it was one of my last matches, right? And my biggest accomplishment in pro wrestling, as well as in life, is that every year has been better than the previous one. So the last big match that I got to have in front of a big crowd, it only makes sense that would be my best match and my favorite. Also, you know, Bandito is fantastic. Not to take away from a lot of the matches I have that were very, like, different or mean a lot more to me on an emotional level, which I have plenty. I had the 16 Carat tournament finals with Karen Noir the very next night, which was, you know, a very different match. It was about 45 minutes long and very dramatic, and, like, the build up to a night on which I had to do, you know, 2 other matches, which is, like, again, the end of a tremendously grueling weekend of, like, very, very, very difficult matches. I think I had like 5 of them that weekend or something, and that was the 6th one, I believe. But to watch that match and truly appreciate it, you sort of have to follow the weekend, and you had to be there, and you have to, like, follow the stories that were told in the previous matches to understand the drama and everything. And I don't think it stands as well on its own. I think if I want to show someone what Mike Bailey is about, the most, like, representative under 20-minute match that you can watch and understand without knowing anything around it is really that match with Bandito.
Awesome. We're going to have to make sure we tell all the viewers that. Mike, it's a pleasure as always, my man. We're looking forward, fingers crossed, that we'll see you back in Europe, hopefully the end of this year or maybe next year. Either way, look, your name's always in the headlines. There's always big things for Mike Speedball Bailey, whether it's WWE, NXT, the indie scene. We're blessed to have you on the scene. That's the main thing. Hopefully everything returns to normal soon. What's the schedule for your day? Obviously, you're doing a lot of Twitch stuff. We've seen you're very interactive for all the Twitter fans and stuff as well.
Yeah, gyms are still closed here, so it's a lot of home workouts and stretching, but I spend a lot of time on Twitch, twitch.tv/Speedball Bailey. We watch a lot of wrestling. That's mostly what I do now, taking recommendations and trying to, you know, either show the spotlight on wrestlers that I know and love and feel don't get enough attention, or just try to find some new stuff through you guys sending me recommendations, and that's always a lot of fun.